Holy cow, so freaking pod.
Hello.
It's holycastsofreakingpod, but it's not a chapter.
Well, first of all, it's Cherrydom.
It's also Charles.
And it's also Chad.
This is not a chapter episode. This is a meta episode. Greetings.
Hello.
It is not yet time for the podcast to be over.
We're stretching it out as long as we can.
That's right. So first order of business today, I know usually in a meta episode that we talk about things, but I don't feel like any of us feel like talking about things. So instead we're going to read you something. So I hope you like it.
Yes, I found this on Archive of Our Own, which is like currently the best site for fan fiction because there are tags and stuff you can search by fandom, and it's just really good. And I was looking for 50 Shades of Grey fanfic, and I found this pretty sweet parody one. It is called 50 Shades of Gay, and it is by Badfic. So, and the summary is, Kate Kavanaugh is worried about Anna's new relationship with Christian Grey, mostly because she knows she could do it so much better. Who's going to be Anna? Who's going to be Kate?
Can we play rock, paper, scissors?
Okay.
All over the internet?
Yeah, 3, 2, 1, scissors.
Oh, I won. That means I get to choose. I don't want to choose. We also didn't say what we were fighting over, like who's shit. But okay, I'll choose. I will be Anastasia.
Alright, and I will be Kate.
And I am the narrator. I turned the page of my tattered copy of Tess, focused on the words, and the meanings of the words. Works of literature fascinated me, which was ironic in a way I couldn't quite put my finger on.
Anna!
My best friend Kate Kavanaugh pushed open the door, peering in.
Got a minute to talk?
Oh no, I thought. The patented Kate Kavanaugh evening interrogation. What'd she call it? Talking? Ugh, out loud.
Sure, you're my best friend.
We've got a whole weekend ahead of us,
Kate exclaimed.
What do you want to do?
Great. The Kate Kavanaugh free time merriment planner. I just barely stopped myself from rolling my eyes. That was a bad habit, I knew. Christian had told me. Well, I can feel myself blushing furiously at the very mention of his name.
Christian wanted to meet with me.
All weekend?
Disappointment was written plain on Kate's face, and Anna braced herself for a full-force Kate Kavanaugh expression of disappointed concern.
I mean, what do you guys do all weekend?
Don't tell her. My inner goddess was in an uproar, sticking both middle fingers in the air at Kate and her impertinence.
We talk.
Anna.
Kate sighed.
Look, I've been with guys like that. Told me that I couldn't talk to anybody about what we were doing. It was controlling, and he didn't respect me.
My subconscious was nodding in agreement, and I swatted the traitor bitch, sparing a moment to wonder how I was aware of a mental construct defined specifically by an individual's inability to perceive it.
It's not like that, Kate. It's so wild. So...
Kate shrugged.
You're enjoying sex. Lots of women who are raised to believe that their vaginas were made just for pleasing men and pushing out babies are surprised by that.
I realized I was biting my lower lip. Stop that, I admonished myself. There's so many things about you that are wrong, Anna.
You don't understand, Kate. He's... Grey.
Well, yeah, that's his name.
Confusion crossed Kate's face for a moment.
Oh, it's a pun because his name is Christian Grey and he's all edgy and dark. Good one.
My inner goddess nods in agreement, pleased at how I put that together.
Look, so he's into kink. It's really not all that taboo these days. Everyone's down for a little spank and tickle.
My heart hammers. How could she know?
It's not like that,
I exclaim.
Seriously?
The Kate Kavanaugh eyebrows of complete and utter disbelief are in full effect.
Because 3 nights ago you couldn't sit down after you came home.
I...
Think fast, Steele.
Closed the car door with my behind. Really hard.
Genius. I mentally reach for a high five from my inner goddess, but she's busy rutting hard against herself at the memory of Christian's hand rising and falling against my behind. No! My ass. His ass.
Sure you did.
Kate purses her lips, and all I can think is how much Christian would probably disapprove of that because of how much me biting my lip perturbed him. Would it arouse him? Oh my god! Kate is blonde, and beautiful, and perfect. Just like, well, everyone who works for Christian. My inner goddess rises from her self-ministrations, machete in hand, prepared to deal with the potential interloper.
Geez, I wish I knew you were into kink like 4 years ago.
Kate mused, completely unaware of her own impending death.
What?
I asked, straining to make out her words through my inner goddess's low chant of slaughter and dismemberment.
Nothing.
Kate shook herself all over.
Anna, I'm worried that you're in over your head here.
If only she knew, I thought, how completely outside the experience of my plain, normal housewife my experiences over the past few weeks have been, and just how vagina-searingly erotic it all was.
I'm a grown woman, Kate. I don't need you trying to tell me about my relationships.
The Kate Kavanaugh tone of not putting up with my bullshit anymore came out.
Okay, Anna, you don't own any of your own clothes. The only outfits you ever mention are the ones you borrow from me.
She had a point there. Kate's shirt and jeans look great on me today. I'd skipped wearing Kate's bra and panties today. Christian ordered me not to wear underwear, and it felt so naughty.
You didn't know how to use a computer until last week. You didn't even have an email address. Think about that. You just graduated college from a literature program in the 21st century without knowing how to send an email.
I'm perplexed. I recognize all those words, but together they seem to have an important meaning to her that I'm just not seeing.
Is that strange?
Kate sighed.
Yeah, Anna, it's strange.
The corner of her mouth quirked.
Okay, fess up. What have you guys been up to?
Well,
My inner goddess clasps a hand over her mouth, shocked at my boldness that I would even think of talking about this to someone else.
Kate,
The memory of our illicit, raunchy acts surged through me, and I feel my lower lady nether lips moisten.
he put his penis in my mouth.
Kate stares at me, shocked to silence just as I knew she'd be.
Wait, what?
His penis!
I whisper. I'm afraid I'm breaking poor Kate's mind, so I try again using one of Christian's favorite euphemisms.
His turgid man truncheon.
Her brows knit together.
His... what?
Ugh, Kate! So much for the famed Kate Kavanaugh real-life experience.
His purple-headed womb ferret.
Holy shit.
Kate muttered.
I know!
I exclaim. My inner goddess has begun dancing, foxtrot steps to the tune of Back That Ass Up.
It was incredible, feeling his silk-clad steel sliding over my tongue.
Right, okay.
Kate's rubbing her forehead now, probably jealous. There's no way she's ever done anything as deeply erotic as oral sex.
So, what else? I mean, hot wax? Anal?
I feel myself blushing.
Oh, those sounds dirty.
How about water sports?
Oh, we've had sex in the shower before.
Not what I meant.
Kate sighs.
Listen, Anna, I don't want to police anyone's sexual identity, but I mean, spanking, blowjobs, it sounds like what you're having is actually pretty vanilla sex.
It's not just that.
I can tell Kate just doesn't get it.
He also uses his vast fortunes to track my movements at all times. He finds the things about my life that he disapproves of, like my car and my phone, and he tries to make them better by taking them away and buying me new ones. Or sometimes, when I'm wrong about things, like that entire trip to Georgia, he found the flight that I was on and upgraded my ticket to first class without my asking. And then he came out after me to meet my mom, after I told him not to. It was so hot.
Kate and my subconscious are wearing the same look. I smack that look off of one of them.
He's stalking you.
Kate says. She's starting to understand.
That's what love is.
Sending flowers means he loves you. Ignoring your wishes and pressuring you to do something you don't want to is disrespectful and domineering.
I feel myself shudder with outright arousal. Kate notices.
Domineering, Anna, not dominating. It's like dominating, but when an asshole does it.
I really don't like how well Kate and my subconscious are getting along here, but something in what she's saying makes sense.
It's true that he scares me sometimes with the things he says. Sometimes I have to beg him not to hit me because he's so close to flying off the handle. And I don't know if he's being darkly erotic or if he's decided he's going to get off by feeding me into a wood chipper.
I shiver at the thought, my nipples perking up against Kate's shirt.
The danger of it all is so arousing.
What if
Kate said, leaning forward.
you could have all of it, the spanking, the oral sex, even some erotic hair pulling, without fearing for your life, with someone who respects you?
That certainly makes my inner goddess sit up and take notice, staring slack-jawed at Kate's bold and unconventional suggestion. She looks over at my subconscious incredulously, noticing for the first time the look my subconscious is giving her. The look she's been giving for a long time now.
What do you mean?
Kate moves over, sitting down very close next to me.
Anna, sweetie, I want to take you to my room. I want to chain you to the headboard of my bed, and I want to look up and down your sex until you're nothing but a trembling, quivering puddle of bliss. And if you really want, when I get done with you, I'll roll you over on your belly and introduce you to a very special friend of mine. I call her Mistress Spanky.
You have a red room of pain too?
I have to remind myself to breathe. My inner goddess is moaning lowly, her fingers clutching at my subconscious hair as the usually repressed avatar makes good on Kate's promises.
No, Anna, it's just a room with a bed, an extremely sturdy dresser, and a certain chest hidden in a closet with pinwheels, ball gags, and anal beads, melting candles, a bamboo cane, and 60 feet of natural hemp rope.
Kate leaned in to whisper in my ear, her breath hot on my skin.
I'm going to use all of them on you. And when you finally recover your wits, it'll be your turn to pleasure me.
I stare at Kate, dumbfounded at what she's saying. Is this even possible? Sure, undersexed, middle-aged suburban women everywhere could go for a little light bondage, but bisexuality? Lesbianism?
Wow.
I murmur.
I just don't know, Kate. I mean, Christian has a dark past. I promised him.
Kate reached up gently, stroking my cheek.
I'll make you promise, Anna. I'll spend the night, and I'll be there when you wake up.
What Kate was offering. I looked inside, consulting my past experiences and my very character to see what I should do. My subconscious looked up from her work in surprise, and at the resounding empty echo that returned, for my inner goddess pulled her back down by the hair. I realized that I don't really have much by the way of drive and internal motivation. I mean, sex is desirable, and I want to work with books, writing. Everything else about me, what I eat, who I talk to, my hobbies, is pretty much up to the whims of whoever's talking to me at the time.
Sure.
My inner goddess howls as the dam of her orgasmic delight breaks, flooding her fleshy valley with a dulcetory deluge. My subconscious, nagging bitch that she is, rolls her eyes at me, probably recognizing that attaching myself to another powerful personality is going to prevent me from developing as a person and learning how to live my own life. I brutally shove her back in the box for being such a downer. As Kate takes me by the hand and leads me from my room, I can feel my inner muscles clenching in anticipation. Not just for the totally erotic escapades we're about to embark on, but also for the opportunity to crack the dark mystery that is Kate Kavanaugh. Everyone knows that people who do kinky things only do them because deep down inside, they're horribly deformed individuals, just pretending to be healthy and normal. Sure, Kate seems perfect, but she's broken somehow too, and I'm going to fix her. With my sex.
That was pretty good.
That's the fanfic.
Yeah, it's pretty much sums up the entire problem with the book.
Yep.
Yeah, it's quite good. And so with that out of the way, let's just take a deep cleansing breath. I'm wearing my yoga pants today. I'm feeling very zen.
Yes.
And I want to bring you all there with me. So let's answer some questions.
Let us bring you into our white room of meta.
So these are questions we took from email, Twitter, and Tumblr that we got. You can ask us questions too, even though the book's almost over, and by the time this comes out, we may already be done. But anyway, first question comes from Kevin. He says, "Good morning. Whoever reads these emails, that's me. Number 1, Loki calls Black Widow a mewling Quim in the movie The Avengers. Quim also appears in the comic The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, The Black Dossier. Mina Murray, the same one from Dracula, now an immortal, refers to herself as Oodles O'Quim while seducing James Bond. Oh, like Plenty O'Toole.
Yeah.
I just typed up an email with the word Quim. I can't believe it, and that is why I fail. Thank you for your quite entertaining work. Enjoy your day."
Well, Kevin, you are truly great. Thank you for your mail. So I think, by the way, if we're all a little bit lost here, this is based on a question asked last big meta episode. We asked for examples where people even use the word Quim in the medias. So there we have it. Thanks, Kev. It sort of bolsters my belief that I probably had before that's sort of tonally inappropriate for those living in the 2000s, because we have a immortal Dracula and Loki who is along that same line too.
Yeah. It also reinforces like how British it is.
Yeah.
So I sort of wasn't sure if it was written into the screenplay for like Tom Hiddleston to say, or if he like improvised it. Like it was just one of those lines where he came up with something. And then, like as I'm sure many people know, but maybe not who listen to this podcast, like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is written by Alan Moore, who is a noted, semi-old, semi-curmudgeonly wizard, also from the UK. So, yeah, I don't know.
So, okay. Am I to understand that Loki calls Black Widow basically a mewling cunt?
Pretty much. I mean,
you
can get away with that sort of stuff when you use slang from other places.
That's what it means, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Jeez.
No, didn't the last person say it was? Didn't they say that it was vaginal discharge?
Oh,
both.
Well, that's worse.
It's slang for both.
That's terrible. How dare you?
Yeah.
Sorry.
And if you want another example, Mayor Quimby from The Simpsons, who was a noted philanderer, and then thought of a pun, or a slogan, which is, "When Quimby's around, Quimby poppin'."
Yep, that's perhaps the intended.
Probably not, but maybe.
Perhaps. Next question from G2097. Hello, Charles, Cherry Doom, and Chad. I'm quite a fan of your podcast and listen to it regularly. Although I haven't read 50 Shades, I still find your critique of it very amusing. In particular, the Americans always give me good food for thought when it comes to the peculiarities between American and British English. The episode where one of the characters mentions that something or someone does exactly what it says on the tin surprised me, since you don't seem to have an American equivalent. You seemed unsure of its meaning, but you were pretty close. I thought about it, and it actually refers to a few similar situations. Either when the name of an object is also a description of what it does, so for example, weed killer kills weeds, or nail polish polishes nails, is a slightly humorous way of drawing attention to the fact. Like, oh, Acme brand weed killer. Yep, it does exactly what it says on the tin. Also, you could use it if a person's job is also a concise explanation of what they do, like litter picker, picks litter, or gardener, does the gardening. If I remember rightly, in the context of the book, it's slightly misused in that it's referring to someone who is very easy to read in terms of their emotions, question mark? It seems awkward and a bit of a stretch, but a Brit like myself would probably understand what she meant. Just as a side note, the phrase features as a long-running and very well-known advertising slogan for a company called Ronseal, which produces DIY products with names like Ultimate Protection, Decking Stain, and Ronseal Quick Dry Varnish, which, as the slogan suggests, do exactly what they say on the tin. Anyways, apologies for the wall text. Keep up the good work.
At first I thought that, like, Ron Seal would, like, Seals Ron. And I did send you a reply email pretty soon after I got it, and I was, like, half asleep at the time and on my phone, so I wasn't able to, like, give you a similarly lengthy response, so sorry about that. But yeah, I think you misunderstood a little bit about, or maybe just forgot what the context was. In the book, Anna is looking at the contract and it says something about butt plugs, and she says, do they do what they say on the package? And yes, they do. They plug butts.
Yeah, I think also that I don't think we were very confused about the meaning. It's like it does what it says on the tin. I think we mentioned this too. Like, it isn't, and you mentioned this in your email. Like, there's not an equivalent in the U.S., not a direct one at least. But I think anyone that heard it would probably be able to figure out what it meant pretty easily just from context, because you pretty much only use it when it is doing the thing. So
it is literally that, yes.
Yeah, and that aside, I think these days there's enough media examples from different shows, both in the U.S. that have, people have become more savvy of international slang, particularly from the U.K. and colloquialisms, and there's also a lot more television shows in particular from the U.K. making their way over here. So
there you have it.
Okay. Yes.
It is now Chad's turn to read, and before we read this, I'd like to mention that this email that we've received is about 65% made up of homophones, meaning it is annoying, but great, so go ahead and read.
Yes, it made me very mad. But pretty much everything Sierra writes makes me mad.
No!
But in a fun way.
Yeah, well, I will save my comments until after the email is read.
From Sarah. Dear Holy Cast, a few episodes back, you guys mentioned that either James or Anna had a pity mentality for Christian, and that they were wrong for it. Particularly, treating Christian as either pitiable or as a monster misrepresents the BDSM culture. My question to you guys is about fetishes in general. While I do think it is natural and sometimes even healthy for pornography to have taboo content, there must be a line drawn somewhere. Where do you folks think that line is? Sincerely, Bumblefuck Sarah.
Sarah, you're a delicious, worthwhile, and a great sport. Chert thanks you. Okay, so what you're asking is, where's the line where fetishism is unacceptable, but, like, specifically in pornography? I don't know. I was thinking, like, for general practice, and this includes pornography, I would have to defer to the BDSM Grand Wizards, who say that BDSM has to be safe, sane, and consensual. And by BDSM, I also mean, like, fetish play. Safe, sane, consensual. When I think of a line being crossed, I think of the Power Rangers fanfic where I think it's Kelly is encased in concrete. The line was most certainly crossed in that case. But anyways, to speak more generally, I would say that... I mean, no, this is not speaking more generally. This is speaking specifically about pornography. There has to be a sort of, like, external acknowledgement to the media that, like, it's a fantasy. Like, if it's, like the example I'm thinking of is, like, a rape fantasy where there's no consent, and that's, like, part of why it's, like, sexy. So, but there has to be, like, some kind of, whether that is implicit or explicit, this is a fantasy, don't do this. I don't know how you provide that. I'm sure you can provide it in a number of ways, but I want to defer to Charity and Chad here, because I just don't know how you would do that.
Yeah, where pornography is concerned, I tend to be very lenient. There's all kinds of weird shit out there, like gore, non-consent, dubious consent, cannibalism, for, etc. And my feeling is that as long as nobody's getting hurt in both the making of or the consumption of the porn, in terms of like, you know, like someone's not actually getting killed to make the porn in a snuff sort of way, and the porn is, and by consuming the porn, you're not like saying, okay, I'm gonna go out and do this in real life, then I think anything goes. Some might disagree with me, especially in certain gray areas that I'm not sure I should get into, because I'm a little conflicted about it myself. It's a bit of a sensitive subject that I've been grappling with in my own writing lately, but in real life, I definitely agree with safe, sane, and consensual. There's another philosophy called risk-aware consensual kink, which is a little more permissive. And that's kind of taking out the safe aspect of it. But it's for people who might not want to play safe, but are still fully informed of the risks involved in their scene and want to do it anyway. So, you know, stuff that might not be considered quote-unquote safe by other people, like... This is probably a bad example, but that guy in Germany who wanted to be eaten by someone else, that was probably a risk-aware consensual kink, since he knew that he was going to die.
Actually, if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to. But what's your conflict?
God, I really don't know if I want to talk about this, just because it's...
Is it the whole, like, dub-con, non-con thing you were talking about a couple episodes ago?
I have a feeling it's, like, underage stuff.
And incest, to some degree.
Interesting laughter.
Because I mean, that's like the main contentious thing about like this sort of this sort of thing in the world right now.
Shotacon and lolicon, that sort of thing.
Yeah. It sort of was like, I don't know, I was thinking about this as you were saying, like, as nobody's getting hurt in the making or consumption of it, anything goes. And I was like, well, what about child pornography? And I was like, well, wait, that doesn't fit in, because the making of it would harm someone.
And in the consumption of it, as long as you're not, you know, doing it in real life. Yeah. By, like, consuming, be like, oh, this inspires me, then I think it's...
See, that's
and
where...
as long as you know, it's really touchy.
Well, I suppose it goes back to what I said, where it's like the meta-media implication that, like, it's fantasy, like, it's not really happening. Like, I feel like I'm okay with that.
Yeah, well, that's what she was saying about, like, in the making of it, like, not hurting anybody, where, like, drawn stuff or, like, fan fiction, I mean, that doesn't hurt anybody when it's being made.
No, not really.
Presumably no one's being exploited to make it, as opposed to, like, real child pornography.
Exactly.
But just because of the subject matter, it's, like, sort of in an ethical, moral gray area.
Yeah, I will not turn this into a giant discussion, but then you could argue that in the consumption of the porn, people could get hurt if it is incest or...
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's why you're not sure.
As long as you are, you know, aware that this is not something you want, that you are going to do in real life.
I was actually thinking more like triggers.
In that case, there should be warnings.
You probably shouldn't be reading it anyway.
Yeah.
And that's, again, in the consumption that, like, you would warn people about it.
Yeah.
So there are lots of, you know, precautions, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to ask you what you thought.
Yeah, I think, like, I'd agree with, like, as far as, like, where to draw the line, I pretty much agree with Cherry Doom. Like, it's pretty much anything is okay as long as no one is harmed or exploited in the making of consumption. Which, like, as we just talked about, skirts some pretty contentious, like, morally, ethically gray areas, where I am also conflicted about that. And then there are also issues of normalization in the consumer, and sometimes in the producer.
Yeah,
but,
normalization and romanticization of, like, bad subjects, but... Yeah, because like Charles is saying, there's responsibility on the part of the consumer as well as the maker to acknowledge, like, that whatever the thing is fantasy, like, it's a thing that they're consuming that's obviously not real and isn't necessarily okay in reality. Especially if it's one of the more obviously objectionable areas, like total lack of consent or snuff or like child porn, as we were talking about. It's like, the normalization is a real sort of concern that is hard to really know, because, you know, by repeatedly consuming a particular thing, a person can sort of get a little desensitized to it, to where it's like, well, maybe it is okay in reality, because they keep I wonder about that, though, because of things like violent video games and movies.
Yeah, it's not, there's no real concrete, like research on whether or not this really happens, but there is like a concern that it could happen.
Yeah.
And not even that you go like, oh yes, I can do this in real life, but eventually at some point you might go, it's not that bad or something like that.
Right.
Like the slippage that could occur. But then again, that's like a slippery slope argument. So
yeah, so. I don't know. I think it sort of depends on the person. Like if you already do very violent things, then you're going to do them.
Yeah, and that's another thing, because it's like then there's still the question of like, is it okay that this was produced because it did tip somebody, even though there are other issues at play here?
I mean, I probably would say yes, that it's fine because it's dealing with a very specific subset, very small subset, or so I would assume, of the population.
But I mean, it leaves open the question, like, well, if it didn't exist, like, would they have tipped anyway? Or, like,
I would say yes. I would say yes.
I mean, it's hard to say. That's the point I'm making.
It may be hard to say, but I would say yes. But also, just like that stuff, like back to what we were saying about people sort of realizing that the thing in question is not normal, and ergo they don't get normalized. I'd say, like, with my own experience with this kind of thing, like, there's never not been a time where I wasn't feeling really bad afterwards and just be like, oh my god, this is horrible, I'm the worst. So I think it just kind of depends on the person, whether or not you're going to be like, oh yeah, this is fake and crazy, or like, oh yeah, this is fine.
I mean, there is a lot of stuff that's kind of... like, I'll see things on, say, Tumblr about, like, an incest pairing, and then someone will say something like, oh my god, these two brothers are so hot, these two, like, oh, my friend's brother is so hot, I ship them so hard. No. And that's not cool at all.
That is totally not cool.
And that's a definite part of, like, normalization and romanticization. Am I putting an extra sis in there? Romanticization? That's right. Okay.
Well, part of the normalization thing, and this is like, I don't just mean like consuming it repeatedly, because that doesn't necessarily lead to that sort of normalization. What really is
kind of saying it sort of depends on whether you have like a complex about it.
It doesn't. There's more to it, because like part of the problem that like is happening now with normalization is the internet allows people to basically just find people that also go like, oh yeah, that's fine, and like just repeatedly assure them that it's not a problem to like feel a certain way or think a certain way, when it could definitely be, like about things like murder and like incest and the definite like taboos. So that's really where the normalization comes in, is that they find communities of people that are willing to support them and like reassure them.
If I had gone through, like, I don't know, 3 years of somebody saying like, oh yeah, this is fine, and by the way, the thing in question is not any of the things we're talking about, but still something that I feel bad about, then yeah, I would probably be totally fine with it by now. But like, I'm curious. I don't know.
That's really what I meant about like the normalization.
Understood.
I don't know. Should I read my first thing? Go
ahead. We answered the second part of the question very thoroughly.
So, Sarah, I think you might have misunderstood our concerns about like pitying or monstering Christian a little bit. Although I think rereading your question, I think you might not have been. Our concern is more about linking his issues with BDSM, his other issues, with them sort of being necessarily the root cause or like outlet or anything like that. So it's not required that if you're interested in BDSM in real life that you've had these issues.
Definitely
and
not.
Simply taking pity on Christian for his bad past, which is, his past is cliche. Anyway, like, he had a rough childhood. Okay, sure, that's a perfectly fine thing for a reader or, like, a character in the book to sympathize with him about or feel pity for him. But taking on pity on him, like, because he had a rough childhood and also it has caused him to have a fucked up sex life.
That's not how real life works anyways, really.
Yeah.
Not like this.
Like, that's not the same thing, and it's not okay, because it sets up an equivocation where, like, liking BDSM equals being a fucked up individual for whatever reason.
Just like at the end of that fanfiction we read.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was exactly what that like writer was trying to point out. Like, of course that Kate has to have some dark past Anna never knew about if she's got these deviant sexual interests. So, likewise, declaring his interests monstrous is disingenuous, which is something that Anna does regularly. It's sort of dropped off a little bit, and I think there's a reason for that.
No, I don't think it's dropped off.
I mean,
we were just talking about it like a chapter ago.
That's true. Like, it hasn't like gone away. It's just she doesn't do it quite as much.
Right. Okay. I agree.
It's especially disingenuous from a character like Anastasia, who is like just totally, completely ignorant about the world, and then also just extremely vanilla. And like this is the first time that she's ever had sex like in her life was at the start of her weird relationship with Christian, and it's weird not because of the BDSM aspects, but because Christian is a weird fucked up stalker guy. And I think that but I think that's also maybe part of the point. Going back to like the normalization thing, where the very, very, very small amount of normalization that this book is trying to do for BDSM is part of the reason that Anna starts out this way, also to make it more, dark and exotic. But it sort of trips over itself by trying to link Christian's like preferences for BDSM to his dark, tortured past and highly questionable and objectionable relationship with the Mrs. Robinson Elena character. So
yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking now, like, if this book was more realistic, I think probably what would have happened, something more subtle, like Christian would not be like, I like BDSM, do you know what that is? And like, going over it. I think probably what would have happened, little baby virgin Anastasia, and he'd be like, time to have sex. And then he'd just like pull out these things on her, and she'd be like, oh, this is normal, this is sex. Because she didn't know anything about it. Basically. So, like, how does she even have the wherewithal to be like, oh, this kink is fucked up, like, to even know what it is?
Well,
and to know that it's abnormal.
I feel like she's not totally naive about that kind of thing.
I feel like she is.
No, yeah, she's not. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of weird, because, like, I think we may be getting caught up in how much we make fun of her for being an idiot.
No, but I just mean, okay, even if it wasn't Anastasia, a totally idiot block of shit, like, just, like, let's just say it's somebody really repressed or somebody who grew up religious and has never looked at pornography or anything. If on your wedding night, because you're religious, your husband, like, suddenly starts doing all this stuff to you, probably you're not gonna be like, stop, because you're just thinking to yourself, like, all right, this is gonna be scary, like, better get ready for it, and like just all this stuff happens, and you're like, all right, this is normal.
I guess.
Yeah, but that's pretty. I think that's pretty fringe. Like for a person like Anastasia, who's not terribly. I mean, she's sheltered in a different way, but not like sheltered from everything. It's sort of inevitable, I think, that she'd like see things in media or like people would just be talking to her about it.
Maybe I'm making up a completely crazy narrative. But anyways, should we move on?
Sure. This is from Pidmon. Hello, Pidmon. A friend of me and the show, apparently. Good. I made him an avatar once of Piplup dressed as Nico Bellic.
Cute.
Hi, guys. Do you think there is any actual affection between Christian and Anna throughout the story, or not? If not, does that make Christian abusive? Also, thank you for putting me on to the chapter titles were so good. It helps me get through a rough week of having to do overtime off the books to get one hell of a drafting job done. Regards, Pittman.
Well, so, you like the other podcast? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, thanks for your mail. Anyways, about your question, I would like to really hear, I would really like to hear my other co-casters' thoughts on this, but I will say, I think that just because someone is insane and abusive doesn't mean that they don't love you and are not affectionate, and that's often why it's hard to leave them.
I agree. A person who is abusive may have genuine love for a person, but they just have a warped way of acting out that is harmful to the other person. It's not mutually exclusive, but it can be, I guess. Like,
yeah,
you can be abusive without liking someone, but not necessarily because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a possibility that Christian is just a sociopath and charming Anna's pants literally off of her and using her, and that there is no genuine affection. I don't think that's the intent at all of the author. I think that James just means for there to be that affection, but Christian definitely comes off as a sociopath at times. But he is abusive.
He is abusive.
But probably not intended to be because he doesn't have any affection for her.
He just comes off as so monumentally selfish that it hurts others. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I agree with what both Charles and Cherry Doom have said. They didn't really touch on whether or not they thought Christian had any affection. I mean, I guess they kind of did, but I don't think he does. I don't think he loves Anna. At least not at this point in like the timeline of the books. And I know that I think. Yes, I'm fairly confident that James did intend for Christian to like have some obvious like love or affection for Anna, and repeatedly we are reassured by characters that that is the case. But this book sort of runs into the problem where, like, Anna herself is a little too new to, like, life and relationships and computers to know the difference between, like, lust and love. And it sort of seems like Christian also conflates the two things in a weird way. Which is not to say that, like, conflating the two things wouldn't eventually and also maybe incorporate feelings of love or true feelings of affection. The line there is, like, very thin and very, very blurred.
Which, by the way, is terrible.
Yeah. But I think that for both characters, Christian really is just in lust with Anna, and Anna is just feeling the same way but doesn't recognize that.
Yeah.
And I agree with the other two that someone can definitely be abusive and also have real feelings and affection and be caring, and act genuinely caring at times, which is part of the problem that leads to the cycle of abuse.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. This is from Temporal Technologist, a friend of me and the show. I thought you guys might enjoy Tywin Lannister reading an excerpt from your favorite novel ever, guys. And there's a link to...
there's a link which we will link.
Yes, and it is Charles Dance, is that his name?
It's Charles Dance.
Reading the part where they're talking about quote-unquote kinky fuckery, and they say it like 5 times, and it's the worst. But
he's a really
it
good
is great,
actor.
as read by Charles Dance.
Charles Dance's Mankind's Gift is what I said. And I believe it. So we have a question from Asdefazdiv. Okay, Asdefazdiv. Hey guys, I have a question about BDSM culture for Cherry Doom and Charles. Every time I hear about quote-unquote submissives and quote-unquote dominance, there seems to be an inherent implication that the two need to exist together. If the one partner is submissive, then the other is dominant. This is where I get a little confused. I'm attracted to dominant women, but I don't consider myself to be submissive. I'm not into the bondage, the latex suits, or any of the traditional trappings of BDSM. I just like dominant women. Likewise, I don't find that I particularly want to be told that I'm pathetic, or that I'm not worthy enough to lick the feet of my partner. I suppose the best way to put it would be to say that even though I don't consider myself to be, quote-unquote, weak, I respect strength and forcefulness in a woman rather than a shrinking violet. But whenever this is voiced, it seems like the desire for a dominant partner is lumped in with the broader BDSM scene, the vast majority of which is totally unappealing to me. Is it possible to just be attracted to women who aren't afraid to take control without being a sub yourself? Signed, Asdefazdiv. Alright, well, Asdefazdiv, I feel like I'm in a good position to answer you, because I sort of had struggled for a long time with a similar thing, and I probably still do. Awkward. So, just coming to the age where you think you're done with all those things of, like, finding out yourself. But then it turns out you're not done with that at all. I had talked to a friend a lot who pointed out that I'm clearly not a complete vanilla person like I think that I am. I had been told many times in the past that I was, because I didn't like certain aspects of kink. I would not say that I'm either dominant or submissive, even though I've been asked to be one of those things at one time, but, like, I'm not, like, a fucking idiot also. I think it's possible to, like, no, as in, like, I'm not, like, uninitiated. I'm not an initiated.
Oh, I see, okay.
It is, of course, possible to like dominant personalities, or perhaps tops is what you're thinking of, without being a sub. Of course, not everything exists in the BDSM discourse. You don't have to fit into those roles. You probably don't even really have to be in the scene if this is how you feel. Just, find somebody who clicks with you sexually. And also sociologically, it sounds like is what you're really talking about. Like I said about myself, as it comes to BDSM, I don't really have like a true fetishistic drive, but I do get some funny feelings about people giving themselves to me, letting me do anything, and vice versa. My answer's over.
Okay. This is a very interesting question because it's not, like Charles said, not everything has to be in the BDSM context. It's just a fun thing and shouldn't necessarily be applied to like real relationship dynamics. For instance, I've met couples in the scene who both identified as doms and they were married to each other.
So what?
There are plenty of confident, take-charge gals who would never touch a whip or step on a dude's crotch. I sort of feel like the thing you were saying about it being lumped in more broadly might be the product of some sort of sexism. Like, oh, you let your woman speak her mind and make decisions? You must be a weak little pansy. It's obvious who wears the pants in this relationship.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant with, like, a sociological thing. It didn't sound like it was like a sex chemistry thing.
Yeah,
you know
I think
yeah.
that's sort of like just a conceit that society might have as a whole. Like, if a woman is dominant, then the man must not be dominant because he's...
Or, like, if the woman is dominant, she must be extreme. She has to be extreme. It can't be in, like, a little way. It has to be, like, a totally subverted way.
Or, like, that the only way a man would let that happen is if he was a submissive and wanted it to be happening. And, liked it in a freaky way that served his needs. Power imbalance is definitely not required in relationships. In fact, I think it shouldn't be unless it's discussed beforehand. Like, in my opinion, traditional patriarchy style shit is a weird kinky thing. Like, 50s housewife style, like...
Oh, yeah.
Wearing an apron and heels and, like, having dinner ready on the table. That's a real fetish.
Yeah, it is.
But it's part of, like, what relationships have been for centuries, and in my opinion, it's it's imbalanced, and therefore...
Well, in a way, it's role-playing, because you are both shoved into these roles, which don't really allow for any subtleties. Like, you are that. Like, not only the woman is this thing, but the man also has to be a different thing, by definition.
Yeah. And if you like it, and you know your options, and are happy, that's fine.
Yeah.
But as it was normalized in the past, it's not really a great way to have a relationship because people aren't on equal ground. Even if you're in a BDSM relationship, you are on equal ground at the core because you are both getting what you want.
Yes, that's the whole point.
In closing, yes, of course it's possible to be attracted to a woman who can take control without being a sub.
Gosh.
You can just be like a dude who likes that, and like the woman doesn't necessarily have to be a dom. She can just be a lady.
Yeah.
That is don't take no bullshit.
Don't take no bullshit. Yep, those are our answers. There they are. Chad, can you say this?
I agree with you guys. I guess I have more thoughts, but it's not really necessary for me to...
say the thought.
No, not really, because it doesn't really... because it doesn't really address, like, what this person is
But
asking.
it's a comedy answer. From
I can
from Chad, who was not even asked.
But that's why I wanted the answer, because he wasn't even asked.
Okay, well, here's the answer that I wrote. What even is a BDSM? But yes, what you're describing is no actual relation to BDSM.
Right.
Can we get meta for a second? Why doesn't anybody talk about Chad on Twitter?
What do you mean?
Okay, wait. I take it back. There are some people who do. He has a little crush fan base. I love that, by the way. But
what? He does?
I misheard you. I thought you said, why does anyone even talk about Chad on Twitter? And I was like, whoa.
No, Chad, I would never say that.
What did she say?
No, what I was saying was that, like, a lot of times, like, when people talk at us on Twitter or ask us questions or whatever, it's like, hey, Chad, hey, Charles. And it's like, hey, there's a third person in this podcast. Did you forget? Did you forget Glorious Chad?
Well, we are the... I mean, I don't understand, because, Chad is the main sex appeal draw.
It's true. But no, that's why I think that you should say things, Chad, because so people know that you're here.
Yeah.
They don't ignore you on Twitter.
I think it'll happen anyway.
Damn
but I think if it was just a podcast of me talking and like you guys had like a single line each at the end, people would still direct everything towards you.
No.
Because of not because of anything like wrong with any of us necessarily, just because of how the internet works.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I don't know, I had thoughts about like because I agree with what you guys both say about like traditional relationships and there's like an inherent power balance. That's just how they're built. But it doesn't really matter to what he's asking, so it's just like sociological pontificating. So no, I won't do that.
All right, next question.
Yeah, you read. Chad, read.
Dear Holy Cast, time to shit or bust probably means shit or get off the pot. It's a living, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah, but you agree. I hope that it still sounds weird. On second thought, though, could be a portmanteau of, and that's not the right word, I'm aware, a portmanteau of Share Get Off the Pot and Bust Time.
Wait, is that not the right word? I mean, can you not use portmanteau for a larger phrase?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Well,
I think portmanteau is specifically like a word.
yeah, oh, you might be right. Oh, what the heck is bust time? Why do any phrases have to deal with poop? It's gross.
I don't have any idea what bust time really is, but I'm going to believe it's the time when shots of busts are in slow motion, like in bullet time, but...
Actually, I was thinking of a period of time during which economic growth decreases rapidly. In the stock market, busts are usually associated with bear markets. I guess nobody actually calls it bust time, but just taking what he said in that...
they just call it a bust.
Yeah, just a bust. But Christian says bust time, so that's what I wrote.
Oh.
All right.
But
well,
that's
that
probably what
makes
he's
sense,
talking about, yeah.
He's a financial man.
He's a finance man. Okay, we have a question from LINXX, a great fan and a good friend. Dear Holycast Shrew crew, while listening to episode 20, your fabulous shrew engage in a discussion on the qualities of various real and mythical predators. The discussion turns to the subject of the Predator, the alien who hunts Dutch and his team of commanders from the movie of the same name. Sheridan feels mistaken that there is a movie by the name of Predators, acting as a sequel to Predator, much in the same fashion as the Alien and Aliens movies. Chad continues this thought by engaging with a line of reasoning that there is only Predator and Predator 2. You are both right and wrong. There are in fact 3 Predator movies, Predator 1, Predator 2, and Predators. Chad was retelling scenes from Predator 2, whereas Predators has Lawrence Fishburne. I hope this extra information has improved your podcasting experience, much how your podcast improves the cold nights I have to suffer alone in the blasted wasteland of the Antarctic. Thank you, Psionics.
So there was Alien, Aliens, then Alien 3, and my favorite, Alien Resurrection. And then there was Predator, Predator 2, and Predators. Great job, movies. Real clear.
Mm-hmm.
Also, is Predators the one with Adrian Brody?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, man. Yeah. No wonder they... Yeah. That's... Okay, now I sort of see, like, there was a huge gap of time in between, but still, it's dumb that they...
Predators is also in the future. Like, Predator 1 is in, like, the 1980s, Predator 2 is in the 90s, and Predators is in the future.
Like,
so,
even Anaconda, the second movie was called Anacondas.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. There's a weird precedent. Anyway, in my opinion, Predators never happened, but that's because I haven't seen it. Which is the reason that I forgot. I heard it was okay, but I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, moving on.
It's you again.
Oh, no. http://37.media.tumblr.com. There's a link. Dear Holy Cast True, from LINXX yet again. He provides a picture link from the Tumblr and says, "Be undone. Thank you, LINXX."
I just wrote the word "scream" here. Would somebody like to describe what this picture is? Yeah.
Okay, there is a DVD case in shrink wrap for $19.99, and at the top it says ASM TM Adult Source Media, 50 Shades of Hentai, 1 hour. This is wrong, but holy hell is it hentai?
Is the tagline, and it's very good.
Yeah, and there's a picture of a girl in purple with a big bow in her hair.
And tied up in like shibari.
Shibari, yeah. She's got probably a schoolgirl skirt rucked up over her butt. She looks like she is in distress or ecstasy.
Distrecstasy. When you said rucked up over the butt, I was really, really trying to hold down the urge to be like, rucked up over the butt! Just like start screaming. Because it has such a good like rhythm. Anyways. Yeah.
I love that tagline because it is an actual quote from the book, sort of. I mean, except for the word hentai. I think this is wrong, but holy hell is it erotic? And I'm kind of amazed that they use an actual quote, because, like, looking at this, it looks like it has nothing to do with the book or the story, and I was like, does it have, or is it just like a cheap cash-in Americanization? And looking at the summary, it is just a bunch of clips from other hentais of just the sex scenes.
Yeah, compilation. I believe it's suggested that it must be a BDSM focus.
I guess so.
Maybe. Who knows? They're just trying to cash in.
Yeah.
Cherry-Doom,
True.
could you read the tagline in a Sonic voice?
This is wrong, but holy hell is it hentai!
It's good.
See you later!
See ya!
Got a jet!
Got a jet!
I wish we had someone that could do like a game show announcer voice, like for that.
Yeah, I
Anyway.
see what you mean, but we don't.
Okay, another question from Pidman. Yo guys, quick question. What is your lead time and how long does editing take generally? I just heard the mini-meta ep, and since I have no idea what American finals are like, it made me a bit curious. Butchering my real-life professional email response, yours faithfully, Pidman.
Faithfully. Yours faithfully. Yours faithfully is what he meant. I just thought he was being funny, though.
I believe he is.
Yes, of course he is. But that's also shorthand. So this is a complicated answer. I'll answer this question because I'm the horrible editor who makes us do all these things. The lead time is usually 4 to 7 days, except in the case of backlog, if we have it. So something we try to do is be one episode ahead of you guys. And in that case, you're getting it like more than a week in advance. Or rather, it has been recorded more than a week in advance.
Yeah.
So anyways, maybe around the episodes 10 through 22, you get episodes that are like very long delay. But this backlog was destroyed during my finals, which were the week of May 8th, basically, that whole week. So that's why after May 8th, I believe it was like May 12th, 13th, that is why we just kind of suddenly recorded it and we didn't have anything. Because, as you might expect, I need that lead time because I need to edit. I need to have enough time to edit, and I have real life and I don't get paid for this. Anyways, so to speak specifically about this episode, we're recording this meta episode in the same week that we'd recorded chapter 25. So this is like 2 weeks ahead of schedule, something crazy like that. Maybe it's just like one solid week. I can't count. I'm sorry. But this is Thursday, the 22nd, and we're going to be releasing this Tuesday the 3rd.
Hey, that's the day before I get surgery on my foot.
Oh my goodness. Good luck with your surgery.
I'll listen to it as I go to sleep.
Is your foot okay?
I'll talk about it later. It's fine.
I know what's wrong with your foot, because I already heard. So basically, yeah, this should be like almost 2 weeks in advance. Crazy. But anyways, the reason that's happening is because I like efficient uses of my time. I like being able to dither if I need to. And next week, in the week after, I'm going to be traveling and probably most likely not going to be able to edit quickly. Editing, it sort of depends, but it's anywhere from like 2 to 5 days, basically. I just like having a lot of time. So anyways, next questions.
Do you want to talk about finals? Oh, you already said that.
Oh yeah, I already said. It was May 8th and it was horrible. Okay.
American finals pretty much take place like all through the month of
April,
May, June.
in June? Just any time during then, yeah.
For different,
it sort of depends on
schools and stuff.
Yeah.
Depends on when school ends. It's usually 2 weeks. They usually give about 2 weeks for finals.
This is for the spring semester, yeah.
Yeah, and then they're like spread out, just because there's so many classes.
Yeah.
You get about 2 weeks, and most people don't have a final every day. It's like they have a final every couple days, or maybe a paper or something.
Mm-hmm.
But it depends on how heavy your course load is. Anyway.
Read these 2 questions.
From Wodan22. I'm honored to be receiving an email from the 22nd incarnation of a god.
Rad.
This is not 50 Shades related, but what is the deal with the instrument that plays in the background at the end of each episode? Sounds like maybe a flute, tin whistle, penny whistle, or a recorder. Also, I heard that you guys were goons, and I wondered if it had anything to do with the weird musical instrument thread on SA.
And there's another
and
one.
then from Anonymous. I remember Churls being on the Right to Talk podcast once. I loved her reading, and someone mentioned a version of the ending flute theme that had lyrics. Is there any way you can include that in an episode?
Okay, so these I just lumped these 2 together because it's easier to answer them that way. We are all Something Awful Forums members, but this podcast actually has nothing to do with that, and neither does the flute. Just to speak briefly about the Retsu Talk, because it was Something Awful Forums related, that really sucks for me because I got like really, really nervous reading those sex scenes to 2 funny video game men, and also a huge audience of video game likers. Like, what am I doing reading an erotica fucking thing? But like, I mean, I know both Roosevelt and Diabetes are like, I don't know them. I know Roosevelt in real life, but like I know these guys. I have no reason to be embarrassed, yet I was. I also had a cold. Slow beef's absence caused evil to happen. That's all I have to say. So, to answer your question about the musical instrument, I am a recorder maestro. I changed the outro probably like after, it was like episode 20, yeah, because... So the person who played Burls, who's Devious Vacuum, who's the nice person who makes our Goddess Alert pictures on Twitter, she did a cover of my outro with a slide whistle, and I crammed the two tracks together because I loved it so much, and that's our new outro. But just to talk about the song and like how it happens, when I made that, I was going for like a careless whisper like sax, like, but like it sort of went off the rails and became its own thing. So pre-podcast, just kind of when we were thinking we might do something like this, I spent like probably like 10 hours with the person who does like the first part of editing, which is to say like the sound management. How do you say that? I don't know. Audio management in terms of like, do our mics suck? Is there like sounds like this going on? Edit that out. Helmet Condenser, and I were just like reading sections from the sex scenes and like making disgusting noises like that kind of thing. And I was using my recorder to simulate oral noises being performed on penises, which apparently go. So then it was kind of a natural progression from there to add a backing track to this. I think I still have this horrible thing. My line reading of Christian was pitch shifted down, and it sounds like Satan, and it also does not sound like me. It sounds like an actual man was like saying these things. I mean, like I could probably recreate it for this recording, so I don't actually have to put it in there because it's really bad.
Speaking of weird musical instruments, doesn't one of us want or own an automaton?
Oh, yep, that's me. I really want an automaton.
Automaton?
Yeah, they're great. I want an automaton
What
so
is
bad.
an automaton?
They're great.
It's usually like a sort of medium-sized musical electronic device that's shaped like a musical instrument, but on the end of the I forget what it's called, the roundy
Bell?
part at the bottom, yeah, of the note, there's a little face, and then you squeeze the sides, and it has a mouth that opens, and when you do that, it makes a tone. And on the actual stem of the note, there's like a touch sensor, and you move your finger up and down to change the pitch, and so you can open the mouth, change it to like wah, 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 wah. Yeah.
It's really great.
There's a lot of great automaton covers.
Very great. Yes.
I also have like a ukulele, which isn't weird, but is considered pretty silly, and an omnichord, which is just silly. I used to have a recorder, but I don't know what happened to it.
I used to have like 3 recorders.
I have a recorder and a tin whistle, which I have used on the show before, but not in the outro. And I have an ocarina made of plastic.
I've really been wanting to get a kazoo to help with the ending theme, but I have not seen one yet.
That would
Though
be so
that is
great.
probably because I never think to look when I go to the store.
I think you should sample that horrible device that you have that makes like the terrible
God,
noises.
it's so bad. I'll do it right now.
Oh yeah, if you play that, then I'll read some things.
It's not going to go together at all.
Yes, it is.
Oh God, I have to find some batteries. This thing is the worst. I hate it so much. Okay, so this is like a sort of shaped like a little keytar, a little tiny keytar. There's like an anime girl on it, sort of looks like Sailor Moon. It says something like with 12 or 8 hip hop jammin' beats, but it's not that at all. It's just garbage. And here it is. Ah!
You're so wet. You expand too. It's from my pleasure, not yours. You're so tight.
Okay, I'm done. That's really good though.
This thing's not done. God, it's just that everyone ends the same way, and it's horrible, and I don't understand what this is. It's just the worst, and I fucking hate it.
Yeah, that was really good.
How did you get it?
Someone bought it for me at the dollar store.
It definitely sounds that way.
Yep.
That does sound like it'd be a good like home invader alarm to keep people from. They came in through your door and that just started playing. Like, oh my God, what's happening?
Okay, this is from Risque Business. hey, thanks for doing this podcast. The only thing that I think you could do better would be summarizing things a little more when you get into discussions that you've already gone over before. That's all. Looking forward to the next episode. This was sent to us right after the last episode. So,
I think
right after the last full meta episode. So it's a little.
It's from a while ago.
Yeah, this was received. Yeah.
Well,
a while ago,
that's a pretty good suggestion, but came a little late. I think we have been trying. I always try to derail and say what's the context? When you guys are about to talk about something, but we may not do that enough. But there's only one chapter left. But I think what we'll do is probably just a debrief episode. I mean, we've said this already. A debrief episode after the last chapter, just to say what happened, everything. So, anyways, next question. It's me from Anonymous. Dear Drew, what is your favorite? 1. Piece of Drew Carey-related media. 2. Sonic the Hedgehog character or fan character. 3. Book you were required to read in elementary school. Please justify your opinion as though your co-casters' lives, but not your own, depended on it. Well, okay. I really like everything related to Drew Carey, and I honestly can't choose. I think his sense of humor is great, and I've seen a lot of things that he's done. My favorite Sonic character is definitely the Eggman. He's a feminist, he's a scientist, he's just a completely elevated person who also hates Sonic, and I think we can all get with that.
Hey,
don't say that! Book required to read in school, The Giver. I was thinking about that lately because they were making a movie out of it, and I didn't like it because they didn't film everything in black and white, with, red detail accents like the main character sees.
Oh yeah, they didn't. That's weird.
Makes me mad.
That's a major, well, not major, but it was a cool thing to
major.
Be able to
it's
realize.
The whole reason he's the fucking Giver's apprentice.
Maybe halfway through the movie you realize that actually there's no color and it just suddenly goes black and white.
It's been black and white the whole time.
It makes more sense in the book where, spoilers, you assume everything is in color, but then you realize that as part of their society there's no color.
I like the Spot the Mistake episodes of Drew Carey's show. They did a couple of them. They're so wacky. But the only one I can remember is that one time Ryan Stiles called Drew's dog Fasty instead of Speedy. I like Rouge. Is that her name?
Yeah.
The Bat. Someone recently said her name was Rogue, and I was
Rouge.
very mad at them. Yeah.
She's
Rouge. Very sassy and sexy as opposed to Amy's childlike...
Dowdy childishness.
Childlike boy craziness. Oh, I also like the chicken robot from the cartoon show. The wacky one.
Mm-hmm.
That one's Scratch, right? Or is
yeah, I think that's Scratch. Or what was the little tread robot?
They're Scratch and Grounder, but I can never remember
pretty
which.
sure Grounder's the... Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Scratch is the chicken.
Grounder, I remember one of his lines, "Hey kid, give me my smokes!" And then...
A different time.
And then Tails says, "Smoking's bad for you." And then Grounder says, "No, it's not. Here, try it." And then Sonic says, "Whoa, little buddy, that smoke will make you choke." And then...
I remember it a lot.
I love those PSAs. I've watched them many times. The only book that I can remember reading in elementary school is also The Giver. I remember liking it so much because I was like, oh my god, I totally get the themes in this book. But then I was so pissed off at the ending because
What is it? It's him and the baby are in this... They're walking outside in a snowstorm.
They're in a snowstorm and they're
And they see a Christmas...
They're trudging and then... They're basically dying, and then the baby stops making any noise, and he's still clutching it, and he gets to the top of a hill, and then there's a sled at the top of the hill.
Just like the memory he keeps getting.
Yeah, he passes out for a second, and then he wakes up and continues and gets on the sled, sees the sled, then they slide down, and there's a Christmas village at the bottom where everyone greets them.
Oh, I don't remember that part.
It's incredibly ambiguous.
I just remember there was singing voices. I didn't remember there actually being people
Christmas
there.
Lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sees Christmas lights and they're singing and there's people. So the ending is pretty good and ambiguous, but also there's a sequel.
I was so mad.
No, it's not anymore.
I never read the sequel. I don't want to.
I was just a baby and I was like, what does it mean? What happened to them? Did they just die?
I remember this specifically because of the conversation that I had in the 7th grade English class about this, where like all the girls, and I felt bad, and I feel a little bad now being such a jerk about it. They were just like, oh no, they made it, and I was like, no, they fucking died. Like, there's no way that happened. His arm was broken, like everything was wrong. He passed out for a second, so he's basically dying. Like, he died of hypothermia. But yeah.
I wonder if we should say what The Giver is about.
I mean, it's, and if there's anybody that's like hasn't read the book, is like listening to this and doesn't want spoilers, then I guess spoiler alert. But also, what are you, like 13? But
spoiler alert this.
No. Yeah, so the Giver is like, is his name Jonas or Jonah? I can't
something
remember.
Like that. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember his name specifically, but he lives in a society, and this is slowly revealed over the course of the book, where like emotions have been dealt with. Like they take basically drugs to deal with like not having emotions. There's people don't like they don't fall in love, like they don't have sex in their relationships. There are people, everyone has a specifically assigned job that's assigned at a certain age as a rite of passage. And like at the ceremony for the main character, his name isn't called, and everyone's like shocked because one, they thought he was going to do a specific thing and he wanted a specific type of job, and two, it's so unusual, like it never happens that someone is skipped over. And so at the end they're like, oh, he's got a special assignment and he's to like apprentice with the Giver, who is like an incredibly important figure in their society, and sort of is like the keeper of all knowledge or something. And so it turns out that the Giver is basically, he just has all the memories of society before it was the way that it is now, before it was like this sterile utopia. And so over the course of the book, the main character starts to understand like the world before it was colorless, which this is like, it's literally black and white world that they live in. They live in a temperature controlled dome.
It's not that like the world is colors, it's just that they don't see color, right? Because it's colorless. But he sees because, like, he sees an apple become red, and he sees his friend's hair become red. So yeah, it's sort of weird because like part of it is like, I think that there's just some amount of, some of it is like the drugs that they're taking, some of it is like suggestion, and then some of it I think is explicitly like they keep color out of the dome, because once he gets outside, immediately things come into color. Like,
I would say that's more of a plot point that isn't clear, because he can see color inside the dome.
It's intentionally ambiguous. Yeah, I think like inside the dome they do have a way of keeping things from looking like there's any color. It might have to do with lighting or something. But like once he gets outside, he talks about how intense the colors are, and there's like sound and stuff, because there's also like there's a scene where like a fighter pilot accidentally flies over and creates a bunch of noise that scares everybody, and it's a big thing, and then he's going to be released. There's another thing about releasing, which is basically euthanizing yourself. Yeah, but they say that like, oh, they're going to another community that's not as good as ours, so they'll be of use there or something like that. Yeah, but it's euthanization. They say like release is like basically, they say that they're just like, they're basically, they talk about it like it's exile, and yeah. But eventually the main character sees a video of what release is, and it's either having somebody like being euthanized or euthanizing yourself. You have an option or a choice to do it yourself. You guys remember so much about this. Yeah. I've read it more than once because of school. I've only read it once, but I'm thinking I should read it again because I remember really liking it up until the end. Yeah. So basically at the end, so he also stops taking his medication, and he's getting memories, like real memories, like the one with the sled. There's two versions of it, which is why it is interesting at the ending. Because one is like, he just has the experience of sledding, and it's fun. It's like this reckless release of like danger and experience that he's never felt before. And then in the second one, he falls off the sled and breaks his arm, and he's never experienced anything like that either. He's never had like real pain. Yeah. And then there's another one of him as a soldier in a war dying on the ground, I remember like bleeding out from a gunshot wound. Because that stuck with me. There's other things about like being in the sun and then like getting a slight sunburn, and like eating fruit and stuff. The Giver is also very old, and actually he's supposed to have already retired, but the first Giver was released. The first new Giver was released because of not being able to deal with the psychological consequences of learning all this stuff and like what society really was.
Why? I wonder why they have the giver in the first place. Seems
Yes.
like, they wouldn't, if they're trying to keep everyone,
They explain it in the book, but I've sort of forgotten because it sort of gets subsumed by everything
Yeah.
else that happens. But I think the reasoning is basically just, to have somebody that remembers.
Yeah.
And, like, they sort of direct... I think the giver also has, like, sort of like an advisor position for everybody.
that makes sense.
Like, based on all the things that he or she knows, they sort of help the society along and what they should do.
Well, we've explained this book plot for a while. I think we can say that it is an interesting
maybe you
and
should read it.
Arguably good book.
It is, I think, a pretty good book, and
Especially for babies.
I mean,
Very good for
Like I
babies.
was.
yeah, it's a young adult. It's a very short young adult novel, and it's way
You may
better
as well
than
check it out
Fifty
if you were
Shades.
Yep.
somehow not allowed or instructed to read it when you were a child.
Oh, it's your
I guess I
turn to
should probably
answer the 3 questions.
Yeah. So I like Drew Carey. I like the Drew Carey show a lot too. I watched a little bit of like some of the other stuff that he's done, like Whose Line and Price is Right. Oh yeah, you mentioned the Spot the Mistake episodes. Do you remember when they did like the live Spot the Mistake episodes?
Vaguely.
Because those were great.
Yeah.
Those were really good.
Yeah.
Because also every broadcast was different.
Oh, yeah.
So you could watch like it three times in a row for each time zone, major time zone, and it was always different.
Oh man, I should check see if those are
Yeah,
on
me
YouTube.
too. I'd be curious.
Yeah, those are great. And for the second thing, my favorite Sonic character, I'm sorry to inform you, Anonymous, but Sonic the Hedgehog is just an April Fool's joke and it doesn't exist.
All right,
Phew.
well,
It never has.
I suppose that
And
answered the other question.
yeah, I didn't actually. For the last part, just real quick, I didn't actually read The Giver in I may have read The Giver in elementary school. I'm not sure. I read it twice. So I probably read it once in elementary school, or had it read to me, and then read it again in middle school, where we did like introspection and literary analysis of a sort. I don't know. I mean, The Giver is pretty high in terms of like books I would have read when I was that young. But I did so much external reading for on my own when I was that age that I kind of don't remember which books I was forced to read. I don't know. I guess I'll say The Giver.
All right. Who's reading
I'll read
this
it
tweet?
because I got it. Or well, I didn't get it, but I asked everybody on Twitter to give me questions. So, at Mitzi Ray asks all of us, how has this book changed you guys as readers, peoples, friends? Are you closer? Has it torn you apart?
So, as we mentioned earlier in the cast, it's true that we are all goons, but our main affiliation comes from the Let's Play subforum and related side projects. In fact, all 3 of us, the reason we were all 3 in the same chat is because I had been trying to organize a Pokebound, my never-to-be BDSM Pokemon ROM hack, which is just too much work for a bunch of disorganized nerds to put together.
It's
I'm
true.
afraid.
Well, it's going along at a snail's pace, so one day.
I would say at a
dead snail's pace.
But I definitely think that this has brought us closer. I'll be honest, I didn't know much about Asterisk, except that he showed up
Say
to
Chad.
my video game streams.
No,
Oh
just
yeah,
kidding.
shit, Chad. And he could make sprites, and he played...
Oh, I used his internet name, not his real name. What's going to happen? It's okay.
And we played Monster Hearts one time, which is a cool tabletop game. And I was sort of surprised that he volunteered to do the podcast. But then I met him in real life just a few months later. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of a very fast track to friendship, I would say. And I've learned much about Charles, even though I've known her
Yes.
for many years. We do get into arguments that might be seen as being torn apart, but I don't think we hold any lasting grudges.
Or are we?
Or maybe we are, secretly.
Well, anyways, maybe.
Maybe.
I already knew. I had already known Cherry Doom since I was like a teenager. Ugh. We had done Let's Play stuff together, and we had hung out in Skype basically for like 5+ years. I did not know.
Some big gaps in
Yeah,
there,
there's some
but
gaps,
yeah.
but you know, there's like just the ever-present presence.
Yeah.
I didn't at all know Chad coming into it, and I think against both his and my expectations, we got to be really good friends really fast. And I have not met him, but I have met Cherry Doom in real life. So it's like, yeah, we're all very friends. I like everyone a lot more than when we started. I feel like I know you guys a lot better. I feel like we're actually friends now. We also do other stuff together, like we play games together and draw together and do all this stuff. I would say we're not being torn apart. Getting in arguments is my hobby, And I usually don't hold grudges unless it's like something really serious. And it would not be anything that we address in the podcast. We do fight a lot more, and we get into more discussion train wrecks the closer we get to that last chapter, but I think that they're really funny, so whatever. I haven't really changed much as a reader, though. This is like a less nuanced version of something I've been doing for so many years, just to pass and get out of college. I think this book probably has opened me up to being more of a creepy pervert, but in a more moral and ethical way than I would have been a creepy pervert.
Yeah, I forgot to say about how it affects my reading. I don't know, I guess I definitely don't like pay this much attention to the wording of things in books as I have in this one. I don't think I do that with other books, but yeah, it's definitely an interesting practice, I guess.
Shad?
Yeah. I guess as a reader, this is the first time I've ever really had... Oh, well, I didn't really have to. First time I've ever tried to sit down and, like, examine a bad book. Yeah, I've definitely, like, read parts of really bad books, but a lot of the time I never really had to do much critical thinking about them. Like, a couple of the other meta episodes we've mentioned, like, I read Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which I think is a bad book, not everyone does, and, Da Vinci Code, which it's definitely a bad book. Everyone agrees about that. So they're bad in a different way, and they're better written, technically, than 50 Shades of Grey. So I don't think I've changed very much other than understanding now how to critique a bad book in a more useful way, other than just to say, like, it's bad, or, like, these are the reasons that I don't like it. As a person, I don't think the book's really changed me. Now, whenever I hear somebody say, like, HolyCastsofreakingpod, I'll just think of 50 Shades, and I guess that's ruined forever. And there's just probably certain things, like, if someone's talking about their subconscious or anything like that, I'll probably just always have this terrible, nagging, like...
It's not what it is.
Like, 50 Shades. Yeah, and I guess the podcast definitely brought us closer together as, like, friends, because I like Cherry Doom and Trill said, I didn't really know either of them before this, other than having, like, watched a bunch of Cherry Doom streams, and then volunteered to, like, fill in for Maids once, and then played Monster Hearts. And then Trills and I just started talking outside the podcast. I don't think it's really torn us apart. Most of the time, when we have arguments, like pretty much every time, it's just like over really, really dumb differences of opinion where we don't want to back down.
It's
nothing personal. Me? It's just like, no, I think this.
Talking about me, fucking personally, fuck.
Oh boy.
No, I'm just kidding.
What are you talking about? I'm so confused.
I was just pretending to be really mad. But shall we move on?
Yeah.
All right, Chad, you're gonna read.
From Anonymous. Just wanted to say thank you to Cherry Doom for recommending Chrome. It's been a great book. I can't wait to see what the group does post Holycast.
Yeah, Chrome, if you don't know, is not the browser, but the George Nader.
Gay sex erotica.
Gay sex erotica set in the future sci-fi stuff, and it's really interesting. Written in the 60s, but it's very flowery, sort of. And it's not what I expected at all, and I liked it a lot. I'm only about halfway through it. I just picked it up again last night.
I finished it in like 2 days during school, which is really fast for me.
Man.
I was so 100% all about this book. I mean, like, yes, there are like some like really weird Goonie parts of it, like, you know, like it's obviously from the 60s, like the tone of it and everything.
What do you mean by Goonie?
Like, not Goonie, but just like really like when I look at the phrasing, like, I cringe a little bit, like, ugh, yeah. Like,
yeah, I see what you mean there.
But it's not because the guy's, like, a bad writer. It's just very tonally influenced by the time period he was living in. I think we should probably do an episode about it later if we keep podcasting. If probably we will be. I don't know. Yeah.
From Anonymous. Since it seems you've all watched Utena. I have a question for Utena, dub or sub. I haven't actually seen it. I've seen GIFs and clips, but I've never seen an episode. Somebody tell me what it's about.
I have passing familiarity with Utena, but like, Utena? It's Utena. Utena.
I used to think it was Utena for some reason.
Retina.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common.
Etna.
Like, reading.
I never saw it properly, but I know it's fucked up and fun. But I'll give the floor to Chad because I believe he's seen it and we haven't.
Yeah, you're wrong, Anonymous. Only one of us has seen it.
Yep, I'm the only one. Utena is a surreal, sort of, spoof / deconstruction of, shoujo manga. I has elements of like magical girl shows, but mostly it's more of like its main influence is from The Rose of Versailles.
Oh shit, I haven't seen that.
And so like the main character Utena is a girl that starts going to this weird elite academy I think she's going on a scholarship, but she might just have like gotten in and he's going there. That is for mostly like very rich. There's a lot of very rich like pretty boy and pretty girl types that go to the school. Mostly on the student council.
Well, I don't want to say it in Japanese because I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but it's dear brother Oni-san, eh?
I remember that.
I don't know anything
I've
about
seen
that.
a little bit of
Yeah,
that.
it sounds like that.
Yeah,
It's like
it
along
is
the
very
same
similar.
lines.
So the main difference like about Utena as like a main character, and this was one of the first like really like feminist sort of things in like shoujo, because this is like explicitly like sort of anti. It is and it isn't like a lot of the tropes of like shoujo manga, like girls comics, because like Utena as a young girl had an incident where she like almost drowned and needed to be saved, and a mysterious like prince character showed up and saved her, and after that day she gained like a definite resolve in her life. And so in most cases, it would be like, I'm going to meet my prince. Her resolve was to become the prince and like save other people. And so she goes to this academy, and some weird things happen, and she's also given access via a ring, and I forget exactly how this happens because I haven't watched the show in a while, but there's like a secret dueling club, and they're dueling each other for access to the Rose Bride, who is a girl named Antihimemiya. It's a very complicated plot. There's a lot of it is actually super dark, and there's also a ton of comedy, and it's extremely surreal. Like the imagery is very, very there's a lot of like impossible spaces and heavy just like symbolic imagery that's there just for the sake of either being beautiful or being a specific image that is there to suit the message rather than to suit like the reality. I don't know. It's really good. It's a little long. There's also a movie.
I was hoping it would be short. I can't devote my time to a 40 episode anime at this point in my life.
I think Utena is a show that also goes by pretty quickly, like, because it's really enjoyable. Most of the episodes, there's not like a whole lot of filler, and any of the like sort of fillery episodes are pretty funny most of the time. Like there's an episode where a girl turns into a cow, and I'm not joking.
Anyway.
That's Utena.
So sub or dub?
I don't know. I haven't watched the dub very much. I think I watched the movie dub.
I'll probably watch the dub version just so I can multitask.
Yeah, I think the sub is fine. The dub is good, is okay too, depending.
All right.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with the dub.
Next question from ShadowFox100 or at ShadowFox1001 on Twitter. I dug deep for this question. Do you wish you could morph ball like Samus? My answer is unequivocally yes. What do you guys think?
Yeah, sure.
Could do some cool speedrun tricks. Anyways, last question, and I like Chad to read it.
From Anonymous. Hi. You might have already discussed this, but you know that the subconscious is something a person isn't aware of? It's not like the ego or a voice in your head telling you to do things. Yet Anna seems to constantly attribute her thoughts and feelings to it like it was a separate, fully functioning person. And I understand that, I can understand that being the case with the goddess, but not with, not the inaccessible thoughts of the subconscious. Love the podcast, guys. Keep up the good work. GW. Oh my god.
Oh my god, it's GW.
Message from an AI. Oh my god.
GW.
Patriots.
I think we mentioned this earlier in the run of the podcast, that probably in like the very first couple of episodes, but this is also addressed in that fan fiction that we just read. I sort of like to imagine that Anna herself isn't actually aware of it, but that somehow the book is narrated from her whole self. If that makes sense, like her entire brain,
of the conscious
every
and
aspect of
unconscious.
it.
Yeah.
And that she's somehow not actually there. Like the subconscious isn't affecting her in a way she's aware of.
I mean, if that's true, this book is so boring because, anyways, This is definitely valid to bring up again, though we have talked about it. I think James was probably going for the conflicting inner monologue that people can sometimes have in their heads, or am I crazy? Does everybody have that?
Of course.
Probably would have been better said as, like, the salacious part of me, blah, blahs, for the goddess. And then for the subconscious, she may have said something like my conscience, because really the subconscious is often acting as her conscience. Like saying, don't do this. But also...
It's weird that she didn't
But the problem is it has, like, a dual nature, because it's also a horrible voice that tells her that she sucks all the time, which is not your conscience. It's just, like, self-hate thoughts that don't go away. I would say that the whole subconscious goddess thing is one of the hallmark terrible things about the book. I don't really know how much I would really want it to be gone, because then we wouldn't have much of a podcast. But if this was done well, it could have been a lot more interesting and surreal, which I believe we talked about only about 1 trillion times.
Yeah.
Yeah, the subconscious is strangely, like, contrarian. A lot of the times in the book, the subconscious basically just has... Her thing is just like, but no, Anna, it's actually the opposite. Which is dumb. I don't entirely understand. Like, early on, it was easy to go like, oh, for some reason she's aware of her subconscious, and it sort of made sense. But then there were instances throughout the book that sort of made it seem like it wasn't really the subconscious or the conscience. It was like, just, I can't even think of, like, what aspect of the psyche it's supposed to be. It's just an amalgam of, like, what Anna is, like, really thinking, but not subconsciously. Just, like, what she doesn't want to admit to herself. Like, she knows it. She's aware of it.
I mean,
she's
an
not
easier way
saying
to
it.
say this stuff might be that, like, the goddess is the id. Freudian id. ID.
Sort of. I mean, it's more like her
No,
self-doubt,
the goddess,
I
not the
think.
subconscious.
Oh, the goddess, sorry. The subconscious.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
is more like her
subconscious
self-doubt.
is more of, like, an ego role, or the super ego even, because if I remember correctly, that is the sort of management device of the id. Except it doesn't work very well in this book, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, in traditional Freudian psychology, the id is like,
Oh boy.
base desires.
Yeah, well, goddess
and, like,
is very
everything,
base
like,
desires.
You know, yeah, like everything you can't control, just like your feelings and urges. Superego is the rational part of you, like in totally
utterly.
rational,
Yeah,
like
okay.
no emotions, all decision. Yeah, and ego is the the compromise between them, like how you act as a person, how you deal
But it's
with
clear to
the
me
two
they were trying to
things,
split it up like
how
that.
you reconcile them. Yes, I think that is what E.L. James is trying to do here, is a really, like, shitty take on Freudian psychology, which is also silly because
Freud sucking.
you know, nobody really subscribes to Freudianism anymore. But yeah, that's
I
sort
prefer
of
the
what
Jungian view myself, honestly. I think that's a lot more interesting. And, like, what's fucking creepy.
I mostly
Yeah.
agree.
I don't know much about Jung. My mom was into him for
really?
a while.
Yeah, he's cool. I like him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the, like, current personality tests are based on, like,
Yeah.
Jungian psychology.
Oh, the
you-
ITNF
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah. Well, there's the idea that, like,
Yeah,
there are
Myers-Briggs.
archetypes or whatever of personality and of story roles, just are like roles in humanity, like the hero, the mother, the wise man. Is that not Jung?
Yeah.
I think it is. Okay.
That's Jung. Persona, for example, like, the last couple games have
Yeah,
had a
they
lot
have.
of stereotypical Jungian imagery, like with the
Yeah.
shadow self. Persona 4 in particular. Because that's an idea from Jung, although it's done differently in Persona.
A little bit. Well,
shadow
the
self.
acknowledgement that you have to, like, accept the shadow or whatever. It's kind of cool. But that's not really how it works.
Yeah.
Because it has to be, like...
Well, I mean, I say that in terms of, like, the overall plot of the game, where there's, like, spoilers about how it doesn't...
Yeah.
Where it's not the same thing, but it gets drawn from Jungian psychology, but...
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's that.
And that is that. Do we have any closing thoughts?
We did it.
No, I'm glad this book's almost
Yeah.
over, and I'm excited to read the last
I'm
chapter.
excited to record the last chapter. That'll be
Yeah.
interesting. Thanks for listening, everybody, and laters, baby!
Laters, baby!
Laters, baby.